all you.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. I'm about to start to share my screen. So I hope you can see my screen now. How I landed on this page, well, you could, let me do a quick check. How many of you are using Windows? So if you're using Windows system, you could raise your hand. Okay. So I saw at least 1/3 of you. So you're with me. If you're using the other one Mac and you're not sure how to get there, you could feel free to use the chat box and leave a message there. And I'm sure there will be helper helping you with that. So I'm using Windows, so I got started by clicking on the start button, and I found my Anaconda 3. You could launch the navigator to get here. Alternatively, if you want to run Jupyter Lab, so we're going to use Jupyter Lab, you can also use this Anaconda prompt. So this will leave you to the bash window where you can do Jupyter Lab.
So just making sure, Jane, we're only seeing your navigator window, not your full screen.
Let me share with you. Let me see if I can share with you my full screen. So you're seeing what I'm seeing too. So let me start again what I'm doing. There are many ways to launch the notebook or Jupyter Lab. One way we're going to do from the menu, so you can click on Anaconda if you're using Windows, or if you're using Mac, I believe there is a way to launch Anaconda in your navigation bar. So one way is to click on this navigator button. So you can click on that button, and that will bring you to the window I showed you in the beginning. It will come up in just a minute. All right. All right, this is the navigator. It's already running here. So this is the navigator. Let me minimize this one. So you can launch the Jupyter Lab here by clicking on this launch button. Alternatively, you can bring the Anaconda prompt by going Anaconda prompt, and you can type Jupyter Lab. So both ways will show you how to get the Jupyter Lab running. So right now I'm using the navigator launch button by clicking on this launch button. So you can get to the same page as I am right now. So I'm going to do a quick check. Any questions about getting on the landing page of right here? Any questions? All right. Once we landed on this page, we'll be using this Python 3 kernel. So this kernel is an important concept in Python. it allows you to run multiple, for example, processes at the same time. You can click on this kernel and run one chunk of code. You can also open up, for example, I opened up the Jupyter Lab for multiple times. And of course, you can run other Jupyter Notebook at the same time. So right here, we can click on the Jupyter Notebook. And there is also a console button. This will allow you to open up a Jupyter, open up a Python code. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Jupyter Notebook. And this is the software or interface we'll be using. And the benefit of using Jupyter Notebook, note here, there is a difference between a Python code and Jupyter Notebook. So if you saw the extension end with .ipynotebook, that means this is a Jupyter Notebook. If you're familiar with R Markdown, the Jupyter Notebook is kind of like that. It allows you, there are two types of code chunks right here. You can see that you can use a code chunk. Alternatively, you can use a markdown file. So if I'm changing my first code to a markdown, you can make some edit here, and you can, so right now we have launched a Jupyter Lab server, and we can create a Jupyter Notebook right here. We can save our files. You can click on this button to save this file. So first of all, I'm going to just make sure we can get started. So this is my first Jupyter Notebook. And you can click on this button to run. After you run, you can see that turns into a heading. And next, you can do a code chunk in the next coding chunk. You can say A is equal to, let's say, 3 and 1400ths, and B is equal to 4. And maybe you want to print will be a function, A plus B. So if you would like to run this code chunk, you can see that once you click on this run selected cells and advanced, you have run through this code chunk. So any questions about the difference between the code part and the markdown? And we can see that whenever we click on this run button, we can see the results showing down below the code chunk. So now I think we can just save our file. So I'm going to give you a little time exploring this code Jupyter Notebook. And any questions?
Yes,
All right.
there's a question in the chat box. It says, can you go over which buttons did what?
The markdown, I think.
Which button I click? This is a run button. It worked with my markdown. Let me see. Get the tile to display like me. So you can click on the run button. So next, I'm going to show another type of file called a Python program. Note here, this Jupyter notebook end with Python notebook, but Python file will end as .py. So you can use the menu, new and text file, new and text file. And here, when you open up a new text file, when you save that, you can click on save file as. And right here, if you want to do a Python file, you can you can name that my first Python file. And then the extension, instead of a Jupyter notebook, IPy notebook, you're going to type .py. And this way, everything you're writing down here will be considered as Python code. So now you have created a Python code file if you're following my step. All right. Any questions about Python file and Jupyter Notebook? So throughout the rest of this workshop, we are going to be using Jupyter Notebook. So you're going to be able to create, for example, a markdown chunk or a code chunk. And for the code chunk, you can run and see the output usually below the code. All right. So for the markdown file, I'm going to briefly mention a few strategies to create a markdown. First of all, when you see mine, you can see that when you double click on that, it will return to the markdown mode or markdown code chunk, and you can make edit for example, start to run and quit Jupyter notebook. So you can see that I use the pound sign to indicate the header. 1 pound sign means level 1 heading. 2 pound sign means level 2 heading. And the difference when you run here, you can see that the fonts are a little different and level 1 heading will be bigger. You can also edit our markdown file by using asterisk. For example, you can use the asterisk and write, for example, we're going to say line breaks don't matter. So what line breaks don't matter means if you have another line, if you're using line breaks don't matter, that means if you break this line to another line, and when you run that will be the same as they're on the same line. So I'm going to just put them on the same line. So this is another level of, this is called the text part. And if I use pen sign, they're meant to be indicate the headers. So this is how you could edit the markdown part. And usually when I use the markdown part, I use it for give me information on what the code part does. So this is a perfect way to integrate your comment about the code or the math behind the code, and also the code chunks together. Any other questions about what I have taught so far? All right. So now I would like to save my notebook. If you would like to save it to another file, you could go File and then Save and export the. You can also export the notebook. And if you want to save it as another name, be sure that you know the, for example, be sure you know the locations. So right now I save my notebook as my first notebook, or you can say day one workshop. So now our last thing for this little session on running and quitting notebook will be once you quit this lab session, Jupyter lab session, you can come back and find your created notebook. All right, we could go ahead and any chat message. All right, we could go ahead and close everything we have. I'm going to go ahead and close right there. So if I want to launch my Jupyter lab again, I could quickly launch it through the tile navigator. Alternatively, we could do Jupyter lab by typing the command line in the Anaconda prompt. This will do the same thing as I did for launching the Jupyter lab. So you can see that I have launched it twice right here. Let's use this. So this is the last Python file I created. If I would like to open up my old one, I could go, you could navigate to where you have saved your, navigate to the folder where you have saved your Jupyter notebook. So this is my first notebook, day one, Jupyter notebook. I opened it up and I could continue to work on that. All right. Thanks everyone for the little first session. Let me have a quick brief. Anything you would like to add it on from the helpers and other instructors? I'm going to stop sharing and take any questions about the first session. All right, I saw Rich had a question.
Yes, ma'am. I saved my notebook and I did a file save as and gave it a name as .Jupyter notebook, whatever it was. And now I'm back in an untitled lab and I can't find it. Where do I go again to reload the one I had? Because I quit Jupyter out and it's not there.
Excellent question. When you say that, you should find your on the left side panel, you should have a like a file browser section, and you should be able to find the default location is where you save that Jupyter notebook.
I don't have a file browser on my left side. I just got the Jupyter notebook on my left side. Okay, I'll look. I'll continue looking.
Okay. Maybe we'll do a quick three minutes. Can somebody put you in a breakout room and take a look at that?
I just wanted to mention I'm looking at the Jupyter Lab interface, and there's a set of 4 icons on the far left side of the Jupyter Lab interface. The topmost, at least on my Windows version, is shaped like a file folder icon, and that's the one that I need to click on in order to get the file browser interface to actually show up. Otherwise, I might be seeing nothing at all or something else.
I'll be happy to take him to a breakout room.
Yes, please.
All right, I'll send you.
Sure.
All right, so for the next session, we're going to move on to variables and assignment. Let me continue to share my screen. All right. By the way, I'm going to briefly talk about our agenda this morning. Let me start to share my screen. We're going to have a little break. So in the next session, let me share with you all. In the next session, we're going to talk about variables and assignment. And that will be another quick session about 30 minutes. And you're going to have a little exercises or challenge questions you're going to work on. And at 10, I think at 10:30, you're going to have a break for 15 minutes. So this morning, we're going to have a 15 minutes break from 10:30 to 10:45. And that's after our variables and assignment. I believe we're also going to talk about data type a little bit. All right. So let's continue to work on our Jupyter notebook. Okay. All right. I have already created this notebook. So our next session will be variables and assignment. So first of all, the key point is variables. They are names for values, and variables names can only contain letters, digits, and underscore. And they cannot start with a digit, and they're case sensitive. So the name, usually we have to make it to be meaningful, so we know, or other programmer knows what they are for. And in Python, we use equal sign symbol to assign the values on the right to the name on the left. So for example, I'm going to create a little code chunk below that. You can insert a cell below, and usually that's automatically a code session. For example, you can keep doing that. You run this. So in the code session, make sure this part is code and you put your cursor here. I'm going to create a variable named age. And then I'm going to use equal sign to assign the value from the right to the left. So let's say age is equal to 42. And to run this code session, you could click on this button, run the selected cells. Alternatively, sometimes you would like to run through the code. You can restart the kernel and then rerun the whole notebook. So this button will run from the beginning to the end and to where your cursor is. And this button will only run the selected cells. So I'm only going to run this line, and next line, I'm going to create another variable called first name is equal to Ahmed. So the next variable type I use quote. You can use single quote or double quote to indicate this is a string. You can also use single quote Ahmed. And then you can run through this code by clicking on this button. So now we have learned how to assign a variable. We use equal sign to assign values from the right to the left. And we know how to name the variables and create, for example, a string type. So next we're going to use print to display these values. Print is a function. So after a function, we use parentheses. So inside, we would like to print first name. That's a string type. And we also would like to print a string called is. And we would like to print his age. So age, that's a later you're going to figure out the type. That's going to be an integer. And then lastly, we're going to type a string called years old. So you can guess if what will show up if I run this line. So you can see that this is his first name. Ahmed is 42 years old. All right, there are several things to keep in mind about variables. So our Python runs things in order. So if a variable doesn't exist, it will print an error message. So if we didn't have a last name variable created and you want to just do that on the fly, so say print last name, that will give you an error message if you run this code chunk. So I'm showing you an error message and you can see why, because you have not defined this last name. And another thing is that Python runs things in order. So if you don't have something and you later created that, you always have to create something before you're doing something with it. So I'm going to delete my error code. We can continue. So lastly, variables can be used in calculations. For example, what do you think if I made age to be age is equal to 3? We can later use print. For example, age in 3 years. We're going to print Emma's age in 3 years. So Emma age in 3 years. And then now you can see that I use single quote. And run that. You can see that Emma's age in 3 years will be okay. So you can see that why it's the case. This is because I haven't run the line 4 before I'm running the line 5. So always remember we need to run them in the order that we would like. So run this line, age is equal to age plus 3. And after that, you can see the changes. Emma's age in 3 years will be 45. So next we are going to show something about string variable. I'm going to do a quick checking. Any questions about the variables and assignment and printing function? Okay, I found a message. Does it matter if it's single quote? It doesn't matter. That's a very good question. Yeah. Okay, nice to slow down a little bit. I'm going to give you a little break and to catch up and see. Remember, you are always welcome to go to our learning notes, and I believe that there will be the notes right here about the code. So we just talk about the variable calculation, and we do something about age and printed a new line. So yes, raised hand.
Yes. Hi, I have a question. So let's say I'm running this code again and again, age equals age plus 3. Then does this mean it will change like 42, 45, 48 every time I click on it?
Yes,
Okay. Okay.
that's right. Good question.
Okay.
How did you get to learning notes? Thank you. So I will quickly put this in the chat. Also, I believe in our website, there will be a link to the learning note. So I'm going to, oh, thank you, Robbie. You already did that. So in the chat box, you can, when we define a variable, can we change it later if need be? Yes. So remember, if you would like to change it, change the variable, it always running orders. So if you already defined and later you made it to be something else, and the new code will overwrite the code before. All right, thanks, Robin, for putting the learning notes. I'm going to start to share my screen. All right, this is our learning note, and I'm going to move to my Python. All right, so the next session, I'm going to use a little markdown. Is about get a single character from a string, or get characters or characters from a string. And this is level 2 heading. Run this part. So suppose I have a string type variable. I call it Adam name. And this is going to be called a single quote Rian. And the next line if I would like to print, this is an important thing. Remember, Python start to count the number from 0. So like all computer programming for computer scientists, they start with 0. And if you're using computer programming for mathematician like R, in RStudio, they start with 1. So this is important. So H will be remembered as atom name, and you use a bracket 0. So if we would like to get only H, we are going to print atom name, and remember this bracket, square bracket, and get 0. So if I'm running this line, you can see that it will return you H. If you would like to get a substring characters, for example, we would like to get from, we can create another one. Atom name is equal to, let's say, sodium. And then you would like to print the first 3 characters or substring from sodium. We could do print atom name, and then use the square brackets again. And now, so the first 3, it start with 0. And then, so this is 0, 1, and this one will be 2. So remember, the stopping point is this I. So that's going to be 3. So the first 3 will actually be from 0 to 3, because 0 is the starting and 3 is the stopping point. So we take slice with a notation start, colon, stop. Start is the integer index of the first element we want, and stop is the integer index of the element just right after the last element we want. So any questions about here? And if we run this line, we could see that it will give us the first 3 letters.
So Jane, just to clarify, is the section that we're selecting as the substring, is it inclusive of the
It's
the
not
character?
inclusive
Not
of the
inclusive.
last one,
Okay.
but it will inclusive the first one, start.
Mhm.
Thank you. I'm going to quickly stop share and see the message. Okay, wonderful. Let me go to start share again. Can I just ask for excuse for 1 second? I'll leave my screen here in case you have any questions. Just 1 second. All right. Thank you all. Any questions? All right. So Python does have built-in function. For example, len. We can use print function to print to the length. So for example, this helium has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 character. And if you're using len function, it will give you the length. Let's run this line of coding, and it will return you the number 6. All right. We do want to emphasize that Python is case sensitive. So uppercase and lowercase letters, they're different. So if you name capital A, that's going to be different from lowercase a. And we also mentioned about we do use meaningful variable names. So now I believe we have a little challenge question. Let me go back to our learning note. I'm going to print right here a little challenge question for you. So, for example, this is a little challenge question you can think about. Okay, thank you. What does the following program print? And if you have the solution, you might use this button to type your answer right here. I'm going to give you a little bit time to work on that, and I'm not going to show you the solution yet, but you can spend some time to try to see what it will give you in Python. So use the code chunk to run through the code and see the output. And if you have the output, you could go ahead and print or paste your output below this question down here. To get into the code editing mode, you can click on this button. Or if you want to return to the view mode, you can click on this view button. Excellent. I found a lot of answers already. There are 2 lines. We run them sequentially together, and you can paste the output from these 2 lines of coding. And I will do a little demo after I just see a little bit more results here. Thanks, everyone. Let's go ahead and try this code. So now the atom name will be changed to another name. It's still going to be a string called carbon. So if we run this code chunk in Python, and now if we run this code, we can see that because we have sliced our string from this carbon variable to be start with 1. Remember, C is considered 0, so 1 will be A, and end at 3, So 0, 1, 2, and 3 will be B. We end means we don't include B. So this will only give us AR. This is a very important thing to remember about start and stopping point for a string character. Any questions about start and stop point or getting a substring from one string? All right. So next, before we move on to another challenge question, I'm going to mention something very important. So if we have a before we have created an age variable, which is later we're going to figure out that's an integer type. So it's a numerical type. So for such variable, if you like to print age and you like to print the first one, 4, that's not going to work. So if we're running this line, and that will give you an error message, and it says essentially this is the integer type and it's not subscriptable. So that means you cannot slice a numerical type object or variable. So to fix that, one thing is that you could change that to a string. For example, age is equal to a string. For example, 42. And in the next line, you could print age. If you would like to print only one string, that first digit, that's going to be 0. This will have something to work. Excuse me. Name string, excuse me, that's str function, not string. So str function is make it to be a string type. Sorry. So I'm going to give you this little code to the learning notes, and then I'll have you work on the second challenge question. So something that will work will be this way. And then if we could have the second challenge question posted here, and you could think about that challenge question, and then that will be the end of this little session.
Thing is they did that sending a letter for the past.
Sorry, I heard some question. All right. Any questions? All right, no hand raised. So we will have our second challenge question for this little session. That's posted on the learning notes. I'm going to share with you the screen. You're able to see this, and try to fix this little problem. And if you want to get the second digit